And now, part 2 of Harland Williams on You Don't Know Schiff. We hope you enjoy.
So is your talent a gift? And if so, where did it come from?
Is it a gift? I think it is a gift. I think it just comes from the ethereal world. I think it comes from the forces that are. Um, I just think it's a spirit thing. I've always felt that comedy is part technical, part delivery, and to me, it's from the soul. It's from within. So I'm having trouble, answering that question because it's sort of a mystical answer.
Is it a God thing?
Yeah, I believe in God, and I believe that God, and I'm not necessarily the religion God. I believe in a God of forces. I believe there's a God of good, a God of evil, a God of this, and so I believe that there is a higher power that instilled what I have in me,
Hmm.
and part of my mission in life is to share that and put it out for people and hopefully bring joy or happiness. So yeah, part of it, or maybe all of it, is from a higher force.
Without we're in a business where people will come over and say the nicest things to us after we're done. It's really quite a
Yeah.
thing, and without making it into a big thing like God, I'm doing God's work. It doesn't. But they say these things like, I was miserable and you made me happy. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment.
Well, I'll tell you, one of my favorite things about doing this, it's not fame, it's not money. I've literally been in many situations where I've just been walking down the street or in a store, and I'll see someone coming at me down the street and they just look glum and they're just kind of like,
Hmm.
miserable. And they just happen to look up and they go from this, they go, "Oh my God, I love you."
Hmm.
And you see their whole demeanor, their whole body language, their whole energy change. And I go, whatever I did, I exist. Maybe they remember me from a movie, or it's usually from movies. I just turned that person's shitty, miserable day into something, even if it's just for a moment,
Hmm.
happy and joyful. And that's the most nourishing thing. It fills me up with, I just love that.
Yeah,
I was
I
just
get the
saying, you have
same
that
feeling
gift when
from.
you walk on
Yeah.
stage. People, even if they've never seen you before, I think they know this guy's funny and you embody humor and you just come off as a nice person. So I think you
Oh, thank you.
have that
Well,
gift.
like I said, a lot of my stand up is before I even open my mouth, I try to send out energy. A lot of comedy to me is
Hmm.
invisible,
Hmm.
and it's about throwing a net over the crowd with energy and all that stuff. So
So,
that's a very nice compliment. Thank you. I
and I
appreciate
second that
that.
because you're one of those guys that
Thank you.
whenever I see you, and it's not that often, but when I talk to you, I actually feel happier. And
Ah,
that is a gift, and not everybody has that. And when you walk
thank
on
you,
the
buddy.
stage, they immediately sense that you're a friendly guy and you're not going to hurt anybody.
It's weird. I was thinking about this. It's timely that you said that because I did a show last night at the Comedy Store, and I brought up Ali Wong,
Hmm.
who's a really funny comedian, and for no unprovoked reason, she said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Harland Williams. Out of all the guys, he's one of the just sweetest and nicest." And I guess I don't. Yeah, I don't think about that about myself, but she
Hmm.
said that and it really resonated, and so thank you. Wow, you guys are,
Well,
I'm gonna go out and kill a dog.
there is a saying that says, there's a saying that goes, if you want to know who you are, see what other people think about you.
Wow.
And
Are you
that's,
doing anything for dinner tonight?
uh, well, you're going to be with the wife. So obviously, I'm just going to be by myself.
You wanna join?
No, no, I've seen her eat
She's a
with.
great girl, I think you'd like
Yeah,
her.
she is nice. 33 years married. How about you?
No, thanks, I'm straight.
You haven't never been married, right?
I was married once, but I don't talk about it. It's, too personal, it's too painful, and out of respect for my ex, I keep that stuff to myself.
Okay, but what's her name?
Carol Schiff.
Oh, boy. My aunt, my 89-year-old aunt.
I told you I like to sleep with the oldies.
I know. And you put on the oldies, did you put on the like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons while you're sleeping with the oldies?
Sleeping, that's our love-making music. And what I love about making love to seniors is when you wake up, there's hazelnut fudge squares on on the night table.
It
It's
is
so
nice. And a
wonderful.
cup of hot tea.
Oh, just to make love to a woman and at the same time inhale the smell of mothballs, it's just I don't know, it's like it's so erotic.
So how do you take care of
You
yourself?
okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. How do you take care of yourself?
Well, how do you mean?
Yeah,
Physically?
exercise, food. What do you do to stay?
So, I basically played hockey the whole my whole life, and then about 7 years ago, a buddy invited me to play racquetball at the gym. I'd never played racquetball, and so I became addicted. I play racquetball 3, 4 times a week. I'm in a league, I play with a whole group of guys,
Comedians?
and, actually, now some comedians are starting to play. I play with Dane Cook. He comes now. Me and Dane play like a couple, every maybe once a week. We'll play. My friend Vinny Vasline, he plays. A few other kids, but mostly it's just a group of guys from all walks of life. And I went from not knowing how to play the game to winning the league championship a few years later. So that's that kind of that just jump in and go for it.
Do they, don't they have one of those things where you can get on it and it floats above the court a little?
Yeah, the lift
Yeah,
foil,
the lift
yeah.
foil for a racquetball. You get one of
Yeah,
those?
it beats the hell out of the propeller, but, it's fun, yeah. You
Twelve
don't
thousand
move
dollars.
much.
The cleanup is terrible though. You need all the towels.
It's horrible, yeah. But, yeah, so I take care of myself, I go to the gym, I, hike, physical, activity is important to me, so I like to stay healthy, and
Yeah, I got a phone call from Orny telling me that you hiked with him yesterday.
yesterday, yeah. We actually talked about this podcast because he said he was, talking to you about doing it, so
Yeah, we
I told him I'd let him know how it goes, and, so far,
so far not
I
so
don't
good.
know, guy.
I
You're right on the edge, bro.
A
so
few
let me
more
you,
belches from Mark will put it over.
you
Yeah.
write, you draw, you put things to paper. Do you put your stand up to paper?
I've never written down one joke. I
So
don't r
how do you keep it? What how do you work it? What's the
I
process?
just I it's weird, it's like that, I just let it flow, I keep it in me, I work jokes for a while, and then I push them out, and I create new jokes, and I do a lot of, improvising on stage and talking to the crowd,
But when you
but I
went
just I
when you went on the TV shows, you had written material. You didn't just improvise out there.
Right, but for them, I had to write the jokes out for them. I had to actually write them word for word, but I would also stick in some improvisation. I'm like, I can't be put in a box like that. Like to me, I know you're buddies with Jerry Seinfeld, and he's a master of what he does. He's a really great comedian, but whenever I'd watch him, I could almost picture him sitting in front of a keyboard typing it.
He writes it all by
And as
hand.
much as
He writes it all by hand.
he does. Okay, so I can picture him sitting down writing it, and I respect that. It's hard to do. He's a master, but for me that was too technical. And so I always said I just have to let it come out and be organic and flow. And so a lot of times I'll write my material when I'm sitting at the back of the club. I'll put pressure on myself. I'll be sitting there watching the other comics and I'll go, what am I going to say up there? Oh, what about I was in a car accident? And then I'll just go up and I'll literally write my material on on the stage.
So do you tape it on your iPhone or whatever you have? Because how do you remember? You know, because invariably you're going to come up with a couple of great lines, and you're not going to remember them unless you write them down.
I just remember them. I don't know how I do. And by the way, I record every set I do with my cell phone. I have probably 3,000 sets on here, and I've never listened back to one of them.
Right?
I just
Me
I
too.
just have them for posterity, and I'm sort of thinking of the future too, because I think the future of comedy one day is going to be people are going to be able to order a hologram to appear in their living room or something, or something's going to happen where we'll be recreated in a digital format even when we're dead. And I'm going to have like 4,000 stand up shows, and every one of my shows is different because I wing it so much.
Right,
So,
that's true. So, this is a conversation I had with somebody recently. Like, they were talking about Norm Macdonald. When a comedian dies, what happens to their material? With singers, they create an album, and other people maybe record some of their songs. It keeps going. Different with comedians. So you have 6 hours of material or 2 hours. What happens to that stuff? Can you pass it on to somebody?
um, I mean, you could, yeah, you can do anything you want, really, but to what end? You know, could someone ever do it as good as you? Could somebody make it better? Could somebody do it worse? I mean,
In fairness, I think if someone were to take your set and do it, it would flop. You know what I mean? I feel like
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I don't think anyone could do Harlan Williams.
I've heard that from everybody. Even Joe Rogan said that on his podcast.
Mhm.
He said like I what I do, no one else could do, and at
Yeah.
times that makes me wonder: am I even funny at all? If no one else could do it and make it funny, but as long as I think it's funny and I'm getting the laughter back, then that's good enough for me. But you know what? I don't think anything's impossible. I think somebody somewhere could master it. Somebody somewhere could do it, and I don't know when, where, how, but the human race has a long way to go. And I think everything we've ever invented will be reincarnated in some capacity. And somehow we seem to be able to make things better and faster and smarter. So who knows what my material's doing in 600 years? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You might be able to order on Amazon. Do you want a Harland Williams robot roaming around your house being funny? You're doing the kitchen, you're in the kitchen cooking, and Harlan walks and goes, "Hey, you got some Brussels sprouts there, lady? Well, why don't you put them on your eyes and pretend you're a Brussels sprout monster, you pollywog sucking freak?" Like that's a very reasonable possibility for all of us.
Have you ever seen anybody do your material? Sometimes we used to do that. Somebody would go up and do me. I would go up and do somebody else. Did you ever see anybody do that?
I have seen people do my material. I've seen some people do my material right in front of me, which was unbelievable. And I've also had, because I am a bit of an oddball persona, I've had people kind of embellish or steal my kind of personality or my mannerisms a lot. But I just, again, going back to using things for fuel, I've had guys rip me off. I've seen them on TV, I've seen them on the internet, I've seen them do it right in front of me. And I use it. I go, "Great. Thanks for ripping me off, because you ripped me off here and now you just pushed me to go here." And
Right.
so in my head, I'm like, "You got me here. Let's see you come here."
Hmm.
And if they get me there, then I'll go, "Let's see you you know what I mean? It's almost like it makes me work harder, makes me explore harder. I sort of like it. I don't get
Same here.
mad. I just use it,
Same
you know?
here, because those people cannot write or create their own stuff, so they're so limited that, and you get to move on. Yeah, I totally.
Well, they might, this happened to me when I was starting. I'm guilty of it. I was feeling my way through at the beginning of my career, and I assumed like probably 5 or 6 different personas on stage before I found the one that I really settled on. And one of them was a bit Stephen Wright-ish at one point, and another one was Bobcat Goldthwait-ish at one point. And I wasn't per se doing their material, but I was probably borrowing elements of their energy and their persona. And I knew it was wrong, but it was helping. Going to those extremes helped me eventually level off to who I am. And so, to your point that those people will never write or never be good, they won't be in that visage of themselves,
Sure.
but maybe they're using it as kind of a cocoon. They're in the incubation stage where they're experimenting or using parts of something that's known and safe, and then eventually they'll break out of the cocoon and become their own entity. So there might be, for some people, a purpose behind it.
So
Are
how
there
did you find the
areas?
right balance
Right.
for you to find that
Mhm.
stage persona?
What I found is I didn't wanna live in a lie because I eventually got to a persona where I was doing kind of this guy that was sort of low energy, but really funny, and I would go out and I'd do 15-minute spots and get standing ovations, for God's sake. It was
Mhm.
just really, like, sort of a character, and I loved it that I was getting such a great reaction, but I'd also go, "Oh my god, I don't wanna do this guy for the rest of my life," because I could feel that I wanted to break out. There was
Right.
more. I wanted to roam the stage. I wanted to break into a crazy voice and so I literally just made the decision to leave it behind, this killer kind of comic that I was doing. I was like, it's not me. It's not. So I shed that skin, so to speak. I cocooned out of it and moved on to the next incarnation so I could kind of get to the steps of where I needed to be where I am now.
Mhm. You know, it's funny you mentioned voices, which you do a lot of voices, you do a lot of sounds. When I do them, and I have very few compared to you, but when I do them, they're so much fun.
Yeah.
You get that
I,
too?
lo-
It's so different than doing words.
Yeah, I love it because that's what I mean. Comedy is it's I talked about it earlier being notes
Mhm.
and a comedy you can get a huge laugh just from a noise or a
Right.
look or an expression with your eyes or your mouth. And so making noises has always been hilarious
Mm.
to me. And so it's just part of what I do. I love making noises.
Me
Is that
too.
how you got into animation? Did somebody make the connection and say, "Hey, we want you to do voices"?
No, what happened with the animation is when I got out of college, I studied animation in college, and back then that was pre-digital,
Mhm.
right? It was pre-computer, so everything was done manually.
Mhm.
And it was basically like an assembly line, do the pencil drawing, now do it in ink, now paint it, now do it was like a various set. And I thought I could be working in a car plant at that point.
Right.
So I decided when I got out of college with my artistic skills, I'd write and illustrate children's books because each page would be a brand new drawing and a brand new scene, and it was
Mhm.
much more fulfilling for me. So I did like 8 or 9 children's books, and then when I was in Hollywood here, my current manager said, "Hey, why don't you come and pitch some animation shows and whatnot?" And so that's how that started down the animation highway there.
I remember when you
Okay.
told me about your children's books and you seemed pretty happy about it. Um,
Yeah.
Tell us a little about that. You did the drawings and the written word?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It was an interesting story. I was living in Canada just out of college. I wanted to do children's books. I came up with this idea, these drawings. I did kind of a dummy book. I drew all the drawings and put the text in and had kind of a pencil version of the book. And so I didn't know what to do. I was green and I sent it. I found a list of every children's book publisher in Canada. I sent a photocopy of all my material to every one of them. I think there was about 30, and every one of them over the course of 4 months wrote back and said, "No, no, 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 no," right? And so I just got angry. I was like, getting the fire in me, right? And so I looked in the phone book and I go, "What's the one closest to me?" And it was about 45 miles away. And I said to my mom, I said, "Mom, can I borrow your car?" And she goes, "Yeah." She said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to a children's book publisher." So I put my portfolio together, put my drawings in. I drove. It was like 1 in the afternoon. I drove to this place. I walked in the front door. There was a receptionist there. And she goes, "May I help you, sir?" And I said, "Yeah, I have a children's book and I want to get it published."
Mhm.
And she goes, "Well, you can't just walk in here. This is a publisher. You have to make an appointment." And I said, "I know, but I've got these drawings and I've got a story and I want someone to see it." And she goes, "Well, I'm sorry, you can't do that." And as I was kind of haggling with her, this door opened and this little kind of looked like a Charles Dickens, like Mr. Fezziwig character walked out, this little Irish guy. And he goes, "What's going on out here?" And I said, "I got a book and I got some drawings and I want to show it to someone." And he goes, "All right, wait here a minute." And he walked back in the door. And I was just standing there. And the receptionist goes, "Well, that's pretty good." And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "That's the owner of the company."
Mhm.
And I said, "Oh, okay." So all of a sudden, he came back out. I handed him my stuff. He called in his whole staff. They sat in his office for about half an hour. I was just out in the lobby with this receptionist. He came out and he goes, "We want to publish your book. We want to do 4 of them.
Wow.
We want to do a whole series." And I looked at the receptionist. I said, "Okay." And then it went from there. So it's pretty wild.
That's
So
an
this was
incredible
before
story.
you made it in stand you were doing stand-up in Canada at the time? Is this kinda where it fit in
I hadn't
chronologically?
even started stand
Oh,
up yet.
before.
This was like the first thing I did. I was just gearing up. So I ended up going home, and during the day I would draw my children's books and write them, and at night I'd go on amateur night at the local comedy clubs.
So were these books themed? Was it Harlan's life? What was the
No, the book's a little character called Lickety Split. He was a brontosaurus, and the themes of the book were were about being prejudiced, accepting other people. It was about knowing who your friends are. It was about inclusiveness. It was about all this sort of stuff, and not in today's woke sense. It was more innocent back then, where it was just like natural human interaction, like
Mhm.
be nice to people. Don't single someone out because they're different. This type of thing. So accept people and love people, and so they're sort of entertaining, but had these very kind of social lessons for kids to love each other and be kind and gentle and all that stuff.
good message?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I was very proud of them, and so yeah,
And you mentioned Puppy Dog Pals, which my kids, whenever they watch TV, that's a very
yeah,
sweet show, so I'm glad it's had so much success.
yes.
Did that
And
come before Rocketman or after?
No, Puppy Dog Pals just happened in the last 5 years.
I see. So they were both Disney
Yeah,
things, right?
that's right. Yeah.
I remember
Yeah,
when
that was a fun story because my teachers in animation college tried to fail me, and it's just funny that full circle now, like I'm the only guy in my class they tried to fail because I was a bit of a rebel, and I'm the only guy in my class that has his own hit show on freaking Disney.
that's
It's just
funny.
like that's one case where I was like, yes.
yes. So, you know, we had Phil Rosenthal on, and he
Oh
said,
my god, I gotta go.
"Yeah, goodbye." And he said after
Okay.
Everyone Loves Raymond, he could not get another show on the air. After this mega hit of yours, have you pitched other animations?
Yeah, I've pitched probably 5 or 6 shows, and I've sold, like, 3 or 4 of them, but none of them are on the air yet. We're working on getting them on the air, but, the first hurdle is to sell them, and some of them we developed for 3 years. Couple I developed one with Disney, another one with Disney, and another one with Cartoon Network. After 3 years of intense development, gone, they didn't make it, and so
Mhm.
now I've got 2 other ones that are in development with other companies that are moving along nicely, but it's not easy. Even in success, just because you sell one thing or create one thing and it does well, it's no guarantee to the next thing. It's always people don't realize what a struggle the entertainment industry is. It's a daily battle.
But then you hear the other thing that they love hit makers, and the same people get up at bat even.
Yeah, some people get to that place where, where you could have a hit show and then your next show you write something on a napkin and they go, "Let's go. It's green lit." That's another higher echelon of people, and that's sort of like the acting industry, right? Like
Mhm.
if you think about it, there's only about 15 top lead actors like Brad Pitt, Sean Penn, Jack Nicholson, and then with women there's maybe 7, like Meryl Streep and a few others. So there's always that, they do whatever movies they want, and some writers, get to do whatever they want. But everyone else, even if they're successful, it's a struggle. That's why they say the entertainment business is such a difficult business. It really is.
So 3 years working on something with Disney, because I've had an experience similar to that. Do they pay you
Yeah.
for that 3 years work?
Yeah, you get paid to a degree. I mean, the real payoff comes when you get development money, it's called. But the real payoff comes when until something gets green lit and on the air, development money's nice, but you can't really live off it. So
Where we had a guy,
we were,
I had a partner. We wrote something, went in to pitch this company. The guy worked with us for big company, worked with us for 6 months on it. Probably had 15, 20 meetings with him in his office. He says, I'm gonna show it to somebody now. He goes and pitches it to one guy. They doesn't like it, drops the whole thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's freaking insane.
it's
It's
insane,
That's
right?
the cruelty. Well, that's the cruelty of this business. But on another note, you could go into a pitch meeting and, like, for example, Puppy Dog Pals. I went into Disney. They wanted to hear a bunch of my pitches, so I went in with about 4 pitches for different cartoons. I pitched them all. The executive was like, "Okay, great." I was literally standing up halfway out of my chair, and she goes, "Do you have anything else?" And I just kinda I had other stuff in my files, and I sat back down. I go, "Well, I got this show called Puppy Dog Pals." And I gave her the 2-minute, 3-minute pitch, and that's the one that went on to be, 5 seasons on Disney, their top show.
It was supposed to be.
So, it's just weird. You just you could put all this work into one pitch and then nothing into another, and you don't know what's gonna hit. It's very bizarre.
Do you do this on your own? All this? Do you have
Uh
somebody you work with?
I work on my own, but then if I see another artist or a writer or someone that I like, that I think I would enjoy working with and has talent, I will invite them and say, "Hey, here's this idea I have. I'd love you to partner up with me on it." And so a few of my projects I partner up, and then most of them I do on my own, but probably 20-30% I'll work with someone else.
Hmm.
When you were doing animation early on, did you see that as sort of a backup plan or a part of the broader entertainment world you wanted to be a part of?
You know what? I had turned my back on animation completely.
Mhm,
Like I wanted something more immediate. Like I
mhm,
said, animation takes forever,
mhm.
and stand-up comedy is instantaneous.
Hmm.
You come up with an animation idea. I had a movie I sold to DreamWorks. We developed it for 11 years, and they dropped it after 11 years.
Sure.
But even if they had put it into production, that would have been another 2. Whereas when I write a new joke, I can go that night and figure out, what it is and how it resonates, right? So I turned my back on animation completely, and it was just this manager that approached me, and he kept kind of bugging me. He goes, "Come on, let me take you out. Let's pitch." And so that's the guy I went out with, and we pitched Puppy Dog Pals, and boom. So that kind of sucked me back into it.
Right.
Was that in the real 11 years? Really 11 years?
11 years, man. It was at DreamWorks, and this also cracks me up because, again, a kid out of kid out of the suburbs of Toronto who's driving his mother's car to book publishers. Cut to I pitch a movie at DreamWorks, and all of a sudden I'm 3 doors down the hall from Jeffrey Katzenberg in my own office, and I'm walking in the morning and, "Morning, Jeff," just like just one of the most powerful guys in all of Hollywood, and I'm like right there beside him every day. It just kind of freaked me out. It's just bizarre. It's so
Was this on
strange.
Universal Lot where Spielberg is too?
No, this is at DreamWorks Animation in Glendale, their huge animation facility.
Right, because
It's enormous. It's like a mall.
I felt similar
Yeah,
because I
it's
went to DreamWorks at Universal to pitch something, and I'm looking. Spielberg walks in and out of here every day. I'm going, how did I get here?
yeah, you were probably at his offices on
Yeah.
Universal where they brainstorm all their movies, but the animation campus, they call it, where they, create Shrek and Puss in Boots, and that people have no idea. This is like 12 enormous buildings, like multi-floored, 6, 7 floors, giant eating area. Like it's almost like it looks like a university. That's why they call it a campus. It's insane.
Hmm.
It's huge. And these movies, these CGI movies like Shrek that make billions of dollars fuel this whole machine. It's unbelievable. Like I said, I couldn't believe I was there. It was ridiculous. Like, out of all the offices in this giant complex, I'm 3 doors down the hall from the top dog, and I'm seeing him, every morning. "How you doing, guy?" It's just, like,
Uh,
bizarre.
Crazy, right? So
Yeah.
was it 1991? Two of us worked on the USO tour.
Yeah. Yeah, that was hilarious. You always got the front seat because you were the top dog.
I think we joked about that. Actually, I think there was some running joke.
Well, might have. I was in the back feeling sad.
I know.
Had to look at the back of your head for a week.
Was I nice to you?
That's not
Was I
easy.
nice to you on the tour?
Oh, you were great. You were
So
great,
we went
yeah.
to Bahrain.
That's where we became buddies.
Yep.
I didn't really I knew you, but we'd never really gigged together, and this weird guy said, "Oh, I have a gig of all the military bases in the Southwest," and he had a van, and it was me, you, and another guy, and he had a trailer with all the banners and everything. We'd pull into these military bases, he'd set up the stage and the banners, and then me and you and, I think was it David Brown or something was the other guy's name? I forget
Yeah.
his name, I
Rich
apologize.
was the guy running it.
Rich was the guy running it, and so we just drove. It was great. It was very scenic. We went through the desert and the plains, and we'd see, pronghorn antelope galloping along. Do you know what a pronghorn antelope
I'm
is?
going to find out.
Well, you saw some, you should know.
I don't remember.
They're the only antelope with beer bottle openers on their heads. Their antlers go backwards, and there's 2 prongs, and if you put a Corona in there, you could literally, take your bottle cap off and
I fell in love with Canada with Molson Ale. I actually, when we were on that tour, there was something going on where people were stealing people's cars. They would just jump in the car and drive away. When we did the tour in the United States, and
wow.
one time Rich was checking in a hotel and he left the van with the key in it, and I drove away with it, and he thought it was stolen. And he started chasing me over in the parking lot, and I kept going in circles with him, and he didn't know. And then when he finally saw it was me, he almost put my head through a brick wall. He thought because everything he owned for the tour was in this van.
Is that for real? I
Yeah,
didn't remember that part.
100%, 100%. And
Oh, that's
he couldn't
hilarious.
believe it. He could not believe it.
I remember we'd be on the tour, and you're a pretty low key guy, and then we'd just be driving, and all of a sudden you'd start yelling like you went from 0 to 100, and just, "What the hell are we doing? Why?" And you just committed to it, and you were just suddenly you'd be super angry, and we'd all just be dying laughing. You were like the angry father on a road trip. We were killing ourselves.
That was fun. Those were great little tours.
You know what I love too after our shows at night when you'd come to my room with that olive water and the warm sponges and
Mhm,
just like give me a massage. It was so
mhm.
no one's ever done that since.
You loved when I rubbed under your nose, right? That little
Oh
area.
God. I think it's because you'd pick your bottom before you do it
Yeah,
and you had that
yeah.
scent.
It was the
How
only
how
thing that
was
calmed you down.
Yeah.
how was that, performing for, like, the American military? Was that sort of like a surreal, like, kinda, raised Canadian, or do you feel American, or how did that kinda play out?
Well, in a way, it's a good point. It was a bit odd for a Canadian because we're not a huge military presence, and
Mhm.
growing up, we have a military, but it wasn't kind of instilled in us the way it's
Right.
part of the vernacular here, right? And also, so that was a little weird for me. It was a little bit intimidating and a kind of an environment I wasn't familiar with or used
Mhm.
to. And no disrespect to the soldiers. I love them. I love what they do, but it's also when you go on a military base, it's predominantly 98% male
Mhm.
and it's predominantly, ages 18 to 30. So it's that kind of like college frat boy testosterone. So my act was a little weirder and nuanced and eclectic. And I'd say that even Marx was a little more sophisticated. Not to say that the army guys were jugheads or idiots, but I just don't think they'd lived the life where they knew all the nuances. They were more of this kind of in training and more like a gearhead thing.
Mhm.
And so I think they loved having us there, but
Mhm.
I think a lot of our stuff flew over their heads to a degree. Not all of them, but
Mhm.
I think more of a raunchy kind of dirty comic might have done a little better, but,
Right.
it was still a pleasure. You love doing it because you know the commitment they've made, and
Yeah.
they've given up a part of their life to protect us, so even if they didn't understand or appreciate or get a word of what I was saying, just to be kind of giving to them felt kind of really nice, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you 100%, and that's a great explanation of what those crowds were like. But they were very
Yeah.
grateful that we came,
Oh, yeah.
and
They
they,
loved it. Yeah.
yeah. You know, you mentioned this raunchy act thing. Have you ever had to follow like someone that worked, half hour, 40 minutes, completely blue, and then you went up?
Yeah.
And
It happened to me. I mean, it's happened to me over the years, but I had something happen probably about a year ago at the Comedy Store. I won't say who, but I had to follow someone on the main stage at the Comedy Store, and they were the second last act of the night, and I was the last. And at the Comedy Store, what divides the green room and the stage is just a couple of layers of curtains. So I could hear very clearly, and this person who was out there was just one of the most vile, like, rudest, like, the N word, the B word, the C word, like, just every third word was this kinda horrible kinda, and I literally was disgusted. I was like, I didn't think it was comedy, and B, I was like, I've worked long and hard to get where I am, and I've earned my stripes in the comedy world, and I just it was one of the few times where I felt kind of it would be undignified for me to follow that.
hmm
That was the emotional side of me. I
hmm
was like, I don't this is disgusting. I don't deserve this. I don't even wanna follow that. I don't even wanna be part of that, you know? Like I said earlier, usually anything that gets a laugh is okay with me, but this was just toxic, angry, kind of vile stuff, you know? And instead of, like, walking away, I was this close to just leaving. I was really angry, and I said, "I'm just gonna take the anger out on stage. I'm gonna go out, and I'm gonna be angry, and I'm gonna let the anger be my energy and my fuel." Not angry at the audience, but just angry at the situation. And I remember I went out and I just ripped the club a new asshole. Like, I was just I just, like I just used it, and it was powerful, and I just tore the place apart. And so
Right.
I don't like to follow that stuff, but sometimes you have to, you know?
Yeah, I know you're talking about Jimmy Bergen. I know that. So
Yeah. Jimmy, yeah. I
was it,
love Jimmy.
no names, but was it a white guy doing the using the N word that you're
It
talking
was
about?
a black girl, you
Okay.
know? And if it was a white girl saying the same thing, color doesn't matter. It was the words that I didn't like.
Right.
It could have been a trans girl, a trans guy, a white girl, Mexican. It didn't matter the race or the skin color. It was the content, and it was just like I hated it. I
I've had the
hated it,
same
but
experience.
yeah.
Sometimes I'm in a club and I've had to walk out of the room because
Yeah.
it was jarring to say the least.
Yeah, I find it very undignified, and I just didn't find it. To me, it wasn't comedy, but yet I had to go back to there were people laughing, and so I go back to it's like Carrot Top. Who am I to judge? If 20 people in the crowd like that stuff, then I guess it's funny to somebody. And so, like I said, I had to separate my emotion and just go out and do my job. But what they did was a catalyst to making me kinda have a different energy on stage, but I just made it work. I was like, "I'm not gonna throw myself on the sword because of their
Right.
whatever that was to me," you know? I'm gonna still go out and rip it, you know?
Was the crowd with her? Were they laughing?
Not entirely, no, I think it felt like maybe 30% of the crowd was with her,
hmm
and it was like, she just kept going and didn't relent, and part of me was like, "What are you doing? Don't you get it?" But I also went, I don't know this person's history. I don't know where they're from. I don't know what their objectives are. So they're doing what they need to do to survive and achieve and get where they need to go. So
Can I
you
ask
just
you,
got to let it go.
you were in the Comedy Store documentary, so you obviously have a lot of history at the Comedy Store. Do you think that
No,
he
I don't.
you don't?
No, that's what's funny. I mean, say what you're going to say
Oh,
about
I was gonna
the
say,
documentary.
because I assumed you did because you were in the documentary. Was it almost worse because it was at the Comedy Store, sort of this legendary venue, as opposed to, like, a newer venue where there's not sort of these hallowed grounds?
I don't care about a venue.
Okay.
My contention is if you have a small little square with a microphone and there's people in front of it,
hmm
I don't care if it's 900 years old or they just put it up like an hour before I got there. My commitment is to the audience
Mhm.
and the craft, not the history of a building and, "Oh, Sam Kinison was here and Robin Williams," like, okay, those are ghosts. That
Right.
doesn't mean anything. I'm in the present, I'm here and now. So that didn't have anything to do with it. It
Mhm.
was about this person was sort of was like to me, it was like violating the crowd almost because
Mhm.
it was such toxic material. But I had no history with the Comedy Store until about 3 years ago. I've lived in LA for 30 years, and I think I'd only performed at the Comedy Store 3 times.
Wow.
And Adam Egget, who was managing it up until recently, he called me up one day about 3.5 years ago and said, "Why don't you ever play here?" And I said, "Well," and this is in the documentary. It's the only thing they say in the documentary. I say, "Well, Adam, there's no parking. I've got 2 or 3 other clubs where I can just pull up and park. You're on Sunset Boulevard, right around all the clubs. It's impossible to park, and if you do park, it's $40. Why am I gonna do that?" So he said, "Come over here tonight." So I went over. He showed me there's this back parking lot right by the entrance. He goes, "You see this?" And I go, "Yeah." He says, "You can park here every night." And I said, "I'll see you tomorrow night." And I've been sets there ever since.
Wow.
So,
Did you know
and I love it.
did you know Mike Binder at all, who directed it?
Yeah. I knew Mike, just from seeing him in the clubs and talking to him and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
He's a
back
nice
doing
guy.
stand-up now.
I know I saw him do it about 2 months ago at the Laugh Factory. And I made a point to walk up to him and said, "Mike, you really did great. Like for a guy who's stepped away from it for a while, you have a real gracefulness, a real calm energy. You look like sort of a real well seasoned guy." And the audience, it's like you were saying earlier, some comedians you can feel an energy
Mhm.
from, and he provided that. I could feel the audience. He was a little bit rusty, but the audience was with him. That they were on his wavelength.
Yeah, he jumped right back into it. He made a lot of movies, bunch of
Yeah.
documentaries, and,
Hmm.
now he's gone headfirst right back into it, going on the road.
Yeah, he's doing great. Yeah. It's nice to see because he's an older guy. He's probably in his mid 60s, right?
Yeah, he started when he was 18,
Yeah.
maybe
So
17.
yeah, to see a guy like come back into it at that age, it's and people like, absorbing it and accepting it, it's great.
Mhm. Mhm.
It gives me hope as I start to get a little gray in my hair.
A little?
I gotta go.
So I just wanted to mention your podcast. That was the reference Mark made at the beginning, the Harlan Highway.
Yeah.
So again, you had tried something new. You did podcasting way before most, like 11, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And so just curious again, sort of what was the spark in your mind that made you want to try something new?
Well, I was doing an audio podcast, yeah, about 12 years ago, maybe longer. When podcasts first started, I was one of the first guys to jump in. I
Mhm.
think it was me and Adam Carolla and then Mark Maron. Like we were even before Joe Rogan.
Mhm.
And it was just an audio podcast. And I put a lot of work and energy into it and I loved it. And then I felt it had kind of run its course, and then so I stepped away from it, and it never did great. I probably got about 5,000 listeners an episode, so it did okay, but it wasn't a monster. I didn't make a dime from it. I wasn't trying to. And then, during COVID and stuff, guys started having me on their video podcasts, like Bobby Lee and Santino and all these guys, and I started to see that they're really resonating.
Mhm.
These video podcasts are really resonating. They're kind of becoming the new playground for comedians, and late night television spots like Letterman and Conan, those have dissipated. They don't, not only aren't they available anymore, but they don't really resonate or matter anymore.
Mhm.
And so podcasts seem to be the new hip arena for comedians.
Mhm.
And I thought, man, it's fun. I like it. It's engaging. And you can sort of start to make some money on it too. And so for all the reasons creatively being the top one, I thought, let me try it again, but with the video element where I'm having guests. I never had guests on my audio podcast. So it's sort of a new arena for me, and it's called the Harland Highway podcast on YouTube, and I'm having a riot.
So last night I went down to the Comedy Magic Club, and you and Kevin Nealon escorted me all the way down there and back. Uh, Terrific session, the two of you together.
Oh, you listened to
The
the
entire thing,
podcast
all the
with
way
him?
down to the
Yeah.
Comedy Magic
Oh,
Club. It
thanks.
was it, wa-
Yeah,
it was,
I love that guy.
and I noticed you had like Emirates Airlines as a an ad. You know, you had a couple of pretty big.
Well, I have the podcast with a iHeartRadio, and they put ads in it. I have nothing to do with who they put in or what it is, so I just told them I didn't want any, like, sex toy ads or cannabis ads or anything like that, so
Well,
I
you,
didn't know
it
that,
was
so
interesting. You were kind of fawning over Kevin's abilities as an artist. I mean, you were just taken
oh
back
my
by
god.
his.
Well, I didn't know Kevin was an artist, and then he came on the Harland Highway podcast on YouTube, and, he, uh he brought his book. He's an incredible artist. He does caricature art,
Yeah.
and, being from the animation background I'm in, and being a illustrator myself with my kids' books and other artistic pursuits, I kinda know when something's good and when something's really detailed and done well, and Kevin's like a top-notch,
Yeah.
like, artist. I
Mhm.
had no idea, like, just the tones and the style and the weight of the medium, everything. He blew me away, like, it's really incredible.
I was laughing
Yeah.
so hard when you said, "Let's each read from each other's books," and you
Yeah.
started reading from his, and you go, "Now, duh," and then you just said to him something like, "Your writing is terrific. People should run out and buy this." And we only got like 3 words in about 2 minutes out of you. It was,
Well, I said to him, I said, "Can I read a few words from your book?" And he said, "Yes." So I picked
that's
some
exactly.
juicy select
Yes,
words.
you did.
The is always a good one. Oh,
And then there was one thing in there that made me laugh, and it was at the moment when you were talking about Norm Macdonald's stomach cancer, and
yeah.
one of you guys said, "Should we be joking?" And then I think it was you said you called it belly cancer, which was actually pretty funny because you took the onus off a stomach, and
Oh, I think that might have been Kevin that said belly, but maybe it was me. I don't remember, but
but it was a very sweet moment talking about him.
yeah, yeah, Norm, a lot of people don't know that me and Norm had quite the history, and we were really good buddies, and
I didn't know
did
that
a
at
lot
all.
of
You were
things
so
together.
close to him. You
Yeah.
were like one of his closest buddies.
Yeah, at one point in
Yeah.
time we were, and it's just something I've never talked about, and that came out very organically talking to Kevin. He brought up Norm, and so just some stories came out, and yeah, yeah, we had a lot of fun, me and Norm.
I think like you, Norm is one of those guys that nobody could ever do that material.
Yeah, that's what Lowell was saying earlier. Yeah, I think Norm's the same way. He's one of those guys. It's just it's like Stephen Wright, or it's like, and it's I think it's all of us. I think
Mhm.
we all put our nuance and our personality on it, and it's very difficult to do someone else's material.
Mhm.
So that's why I say the power of joke writing is I'm a real fan of it, because even if Stephen Wright no one else could deliver Stephen Wright's material, if I read Stephen Wright's material on a page, and I didn't even know who he was, I'd go, "Oh my god, that's so clever and funny."
Mhm.
Whereas if I read an attitude comic going, "Man, the other day I was at the mall, and why are people this guy was wearing a hat and he pushed me," and I said, "Why'd you push me?" It's like, where's the funny to me? So I always look for, like, really clever kind of punchlines and writing. I like that more.
Is it still? I have 2 new routines that I'm getting going, and I'm so excited to get back up on stage maybe Sunday night to see what I have here. You
Yeah.
still get that chill?
Oh yeah. I go up 3, 4, 5 times a week
That's
when
amazing.
I'm in town in Hollywood. Yeah. I go up all the time. I love it. Yeah.
That's
And I do
amazing.
wanna mention a book you wrote a long time ago, "The Things You Don't Know." I do think you really hit the nail on the head in terms of having, like, universal comedy and then with the headline jokes, and then when you go into it, it's very Harland Williams. So some of those things are quite enjoyable.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah. I try to, just try to put my persona onto it, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but
Yeah. And the podcast though, I think is really great because like hearing someone like Bill Burr, who's usually very reserved, just watching you guys banter together, it's a really great show.
oh,
So
thank you, man. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
I'm getting some great guests, and it's fun because I'm sort of some of the conversations I'm having with my guests are the longest periods of time I've ever sat down with them.
right.
So it's fun because I'm getting to know them and getting to understand their style and their persona, and so it's entertaining, but it's also revealing, and it's a lot of fun because I'm mostly interviewing real funny people, so it's I'm having a blast.
It's nice, isn't it? It's nice. Bill Maher talks about that. Like on his regular TV show, he only gets a couple minutes with somebody, but on his podcast, he's spending an hour and 2 hours with people, and he really feels it's great to have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on here for about an hour with you, and I don't know, just that blank, almost like a statue. I can't get anything off of you.
Well, we're gonna put you down in about a minute or two. So don't. I know you have other things to do.
Can I ask you that actually to your point? You Mark is known for not laughing that much. Do you have
Right.
do you find when you're listening to other comedians or in what aspects of life do you find you laugh more than others or do you feel you need to be more reserved sometimes because you're a professional? How do you
I think the beauty of when I laugh is that it's totally kind of ambiguous. I never know.
Mhm,
Like, I don't have a set kind of, you know, bunch of buttons that you can push. I seem to laugh at just the most random, stupid
mhm,
things, and I don't know if it's gonna be if I see a bug laying on its back struggling to turn over, or it's an old lady tripping on a carpet at a mall, or it's someone saying something, you
right.
know? I I I like the, unexpected nature of my sense of humor because I never know when it's coming. So I wish it happened every 10 minutes because
Mhm,
nothing feels better than a
Right.
a deep, out of control laugh. Like, it's one of the best feelings in the world, but, when they do come along, man, do you cherish them. They're beautiful.
Only in a mental home where people just sitting laughing all the time. So you really don't want that.
I do.
Maybe, maybe.
Do you know if there's any openings in the one near your neighborhood,
There's
or
two, one
I'd
for
love.
you and one for my wife.
Great. Do you think we could share a room?
I'll talk. Yeah. Look at Lowell.
I mean, watching me with your wife should get you laughing pretty good. So he just laughed.
I've been laughing
Fake,
throughout this
fake.
whole thing. Lowell makes it sound like you're talking to a funeral director here. I
You laugh with your eyes. You laugh with your eyes.
I laugh in my soul.
Yeah.
So before we let you go,
Yeah.
um, one or two more questions. Well, what? Give them the one we like to ask. The really hard one.
I'm just kind of curious if you have advice you wish someone had shared with you when you were much younger, or something you think you would want to share with people coming up, or just that you've learned through life.
The one thing I wish people shared is when you're coming up, things come at you, things, opportunities, and I wish that there was a school for managers and clients to sit down where managers could spell out more what they do and the decision making process and how they're looking out for your interests, and you know what I mean,
Mhm,
because there's I think I went through this spell where I was just like things were coming in and they give it to your manager and you just go, "Oh, my manager will take care of it." It's like,
right,
well, so and so just offered you a movie, and well, what does my manager say? And then the manager goes, "Oh, let's pass on." You're like, "Okay, let's pass on it." And then you look back and you go, "Wait a minute, I was just offered a movie." So I wish there was more some way to understand the forces that'll be helping shape your career.
mhm,
I wish there was almost some kind of school. I think athletes need that too, where you go to class and they sit you down and here's how you need to approach money. Here's how you need to approach offers. how you need to approach fans. Here's how you need to approach women.
Mhm.
Here's how you need to approach, you know what I mean? But it's really, you're just thrown into this huge machine that can have huge consequence and huge
Mhm.
money and huge ramifications. And it feels like everyone's just sort of guessing. And so I don't know. I wish that was a bit more, I don't know,
That's
could
good.
be taught or, yeah,
You know, what young people don't know is that when an opportunity comes and it doesn't work out, there's going to be another one.
right.
Young people
Yeah.
really think, "Oh, this is it. This is my chance, and if I don't, this doesn't work, I'm dead."
Right, right. Yes, and that has to come from you. As
Right.
long as you believe that there's still life in you. If you roll over and die and go, "Oh, I missed that opportunity, it's over," well, then it will be over. But if you keep, it's like that old adage, you just keep get up and keep swinging. You got, if you're not, you got to be in it to win it, you know?
Well, one of the great things about stand-up, if not the greatest, is that if all else disappears, you have this, and you can do this the rest of your life. They cannot
Yeah,
take this
that's
back.
right.
They don't ever have to give you a movie or a TV show, but they can't stop this.
That's right, and stand-up's probably one of the very few disciplines where you're completely in control of it. You're
Hmm.
completely in control of the writing, the delivery, the everything. So it's a real pure form of entertainment. It's
Right. We
beautiful.
don't need to bring equipment, and we don't have to depend on other people. It's just
Yeah.
people say to me, we go to a gig, they go, "What do you need?" Okay, I need a stool, a bottle of water, a microphone, and then leave me alone.
Yeah, that's it. And, don't forget the crowd, buddy. You need the
Well,
crowd.
they don't show up for me, but for you, you get the crowd. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'll be there for you.
good, Lowell.
Yeah, so you wanna tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, man, you can follow me on my Instagram. I put up a lot of funny clips every day, like just quick little comedy clips. So Instagram at Harland Williams. You can follow my podcast at the Harland Highway on YouTube. Please subscribe to my podcast and watch and leave comments. You can follow my Twitter at Harland Highway on Twitter. And you can follow me to Arby's for lunch because that's where I'm going for lunch today.
How much time do
I
you
was just
spend a
gonna
day doing those things? Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Uh, I'd probably dedicate, like, you know, how long does it take to post a clip? Like 30 seconds,
Mhm,
40 seconds.
mhm.
So not a lot. Just, I like to put something every day, just dedicated to getting attention towards my podcast, The Harlan Highway on YouTube.
Mhm.
Not, no, some people maybe sit at it all day. I don't. I mean, you know,
Right.
and unfortunately, my shirt didn't get here on time, but, I wanna make a plug for harbling.com. I ordered a,
oh
Pink
yeah,
Floyd shirt. I
thank
thought that
you.
was a hilarious, shirt.
Oh
So
yeah, so I draw my own T-shirts. I draw with Sharpie onto T-shirts, and people really love them. So I started a website called Harbling HARBLING.com, and you can go and buy an original piece of art that I drew right onto the shirt. Or if the shirt is sold, you can buy a print of the shirt for a little cheaper. So thank you for mentioning that. It's been a lot of fun. People love it.
Can they buy a
yeah.
snapshot of it instead of the shirt? Can they just get a little 4 by 6 photo of a shirt?
Um, if you're gonna try to undermine my industry and my business, and I might just come over there and build you a real shelf on your wall.
That's why I didn't invite you into my studio.
Well, studio, I see two pieces of plywood and some old Air Supply albums. I don't know if that's a studio or an underground bunker. Oh God, he's going for the Air
I'm just
Supply.
pulling no any 5 out. So these are all comedy albums, Jewish comedy songs. There's one. Look at this one. You ever hear this? Sandy
It's
Barron. You remember Sandy Barron?
Yeah.
no,
One of the greats. He was in the Woody Allen movie, um, oh, Broadway Danny Rose. You know that movie?
this isn't Back to the Future, guy.
All
You
right.
got
That's
anything
enough.
from
That's
within
enough.
the last 73 years?
That's enough. That's enough of you. However, your bullshit.
He's losing it again.
Has anybody
I
in the
know, I'm
family
waiting for him to go.
has anybody ever said that to you and your family? I've had it with your bullshit already. I've just
No, we didn't swear at our house. You couldn't even say "geez." If you said, "Oh, geez," my dad would say, "That's like saying Jesus. Don't say that." We couldn't say "shut up." We couldn't say anything. So,
I think that's good. That's why you're the way
yeah,
you are. I think that's that.
I believe that too. Actually,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
That's called a good upbringing.
that's right. I can't argue that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think Harlan, thank you. And
Thank you, man. Great to catch up and see you. And Lowell, great to see you, man.
Yeah, can't thank you enough. This was really a real pleasure, and
Yeah,
we
me
appreciate
too.
you taking the time.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
that was Harland Williams, and Lowell got to meet Harlan, and we just spent 2 hours talking to Harlan. And let me tell you, it was nothing like I thought it would be. I thought it would just be joking around, and we started off funny and
Mhm.
joking around, but then he dug deep into his soul, and this was a powerful conversation. I got to say, 2 hours, I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, he can't not be funny. So he manages to beautifully talk about substantive things and be hilarious at the same time. So you've traveled with him before, as we talk about in the episodes. So you knew his character. But yeah, he's a very generous soul, a very generous
Mm.
person. And this was a pleasure talking with him.
This guy's got a big heart. You don't become an artist of his magnitude, which is children's books, animation, stand up,
Mhm.
acting, writing a book without
Mhm.
having a big heart. You don't do it.
Yeah, and an incredibly good work ethic.
He's an entertainer, pure entertainer. And that's all he cares about is making people laugh. And that's the
Yeah.
school that I came out of, and he continues on with it to this day.
Yeah, he's an entertainer and he's part stand-up comedian, actor, writer. We didn't talk about music, but there's other things even beyond what we were able to cover in there. So, a very, very talented person, a very generous person, and a deep person. And when you talk to him, you really understand why he's so successful and why he deserves that success that he's,
Amazing.
worked so hard for. Yeah,
Hmm.
this was great. And everyone out there, we hope you enjoyed this. It was Harland Williams. And again, we hope you enjoy You Don't Know Schiff. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. And we will talk to you next time.
Sooner the better. Thank you.